What's up, review crew? The Smashing Machine is out in cinemas now. I saw it. I have some thoughts on it. Let's chat. The Smashing Machine is a film about MMA champ and early pioneer of the sport Mark Kerr and the highs and lows of his career in the late 90s and early 2000s. Mark Kerr, the main character played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, faces the taste of sweet victory, bitter defeat, and a copious amount of opioids as we learn about what life is like behind the curtains of a fighter back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So, before I jump into it, I do want to say there will be slight spoilers. Nothing major to actually foil the plot for yourself, but if you want to be cautious and tread carefully, I'd say pause now. Okay, so what did I think? Well, my immediate takeaways, being a fan of MMA and its history, is that I really appreciated the way they portrayed that specific time period. It was such an uphill battle, and they should all be commended, all the fighters that is, for the work that they put in and what they were doing. You know, you look at the travel to Japan or the fights they were getting, it's nowhere near what the product looks like today. And if I compare it to UFC today, obviously, naturally, the economy has provided for fights and fighters to make so much more money, but none of this would have been possible without that generation. And I really do appreciate the way Benny Safdie appreciated those fighters and highlighted that in this film. The other massive bright spot to me was the performances. Now, obviously, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is getting a lot of acclaim for his performance, but I also really think Emily Blunt was really fantastic in this film. And I think that both of their performances can be really highlighted when talking about their relationship. I think the nuance of painting a relationship like that, which is full of toxic traits, it's so complex. It's got so much depth, and both of those characters have so much more to them, and a lot actually goes on without being said on screen. All of that put together makes me feel like they both were really, really on point, and I think that they both understood the brief, and it's really commendable how it comes across on screen, and I think they deserve both a lot of praise and acclaim for what they did. I think the two standout scenes when thinking about their performances in particular that have stuck in my mind is firstly the fight after her night out. Obviously she comes into the kitchen, he's back from rehab, things are a little sensitive, and there's not really much of a care for what he's going through. And she pops some Advils and it sparks outrage. And I just think the way they built that up and the structure to the fight and the conversation that followed in the argument was really authentic. You follow that up a little bit later in the film with the fight right before Mark Kerr, is about to leave for the Grand Prix, the biggest fight of his life. And again, all hell breaks loose as they're setting up for a party that was about to happen at their house. And what I really loved about this is, again, it's not convenient. Fighting's never convenient. These things are never scripted, and of course it happens right before something's, about to go on in their lives, but that's because that's what toxicity can be like. And again, it just felt so authentic to what some of those scenes and scenarios look like in real life. And I think they just both did an excellent job there. And the climax in that last fight was really believable and was felt through the screen. With that being said, there were certain fights or certain moments in the movie that I felt some of the filming potentially took away from some of those moments, I guess us as the viewers or the audience were trying to immerse themselves in. Now, I know that the Safdie brothers are known for their close proximity filming. I completely understand that. However, I think that this is a film that would have benefited from a little more variety in terms of using some other strategies or techniques to film certain scenes in different ways. I'm not saying by any means they should have completely taken away the close-ups, because there are some scenes and some shots that will stick with me from the film. However, there was definitely certain times where I felt that we could have pulled the camera back, we could have set the camera still and just let it film. And I think there are certain close snap zooms that happened that remind you that, oh wait, we're actually watching this on a camera, oh we're watching this in the cinema, and it takes you a little bit out of the film. Well, for me personally it did, and I wish that some of those weren't actually in there. All in all, above that though, I really did enjoy the way they fleshed the story out, especially the last 15 minutes and how they finished it up. I think finishing The Rock's portion of the film as Mark Kerr in Japan in the showers was a really neat touch and closed the story really well. And I also think that the way they actually finished the film with the actual Mark Kerr in the future really helped close the story and give you that understanding and perspective of where he is in his life, and give us some comfort as the audience that things actually did go okay for him. Last thing I'll say is I did enjoy that they pulled some inspiration from, some other films within the sporting category. Most notably, I felt some of those Rocky undertones, and I really did appreciate that. I think it obviously helped with the ethos of the film itself. And so performances included, the actual story of Mark Kerr and the position of MMA where it was at the time. I did enjoy this project, and I really think it is something that is worth seeing. So with that, as you can see on screen now, that's my scores and how I've broken them down. I'm giving this film a 71 out of 100. I will say that a lot of things held up really well. As I mentioned, some of the things from a cinematography, filming lens. Also, the score wasn't necessarily unique or over the top or adding any additional crazy value, but it was still accurate for what it was. If you're still watching, crew, and you're at this point in the video, give it a like please, but more importantly, let me know your thoughts. I think it's really interesting when discussing some of these films, the perspectives and the feelings that others take away. I'm an MMA fan, for example, and I'd love to hear from others that aren't, because obviously that perspective might be completely different to how I felt. And lastly, I did want to say again, thank you for the recent support on my videos. It's really nice to actually put things out there for people to watch and people watching them. And I hope you stick around, and I hope you keep doing that in the future. So anyway, until next time, crew, peace.